Well, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Wes Hines. I'm the Nuclear Engineering Department Head here at the University of Tennessee. And today we're very pleased to have Ms. Lorna Hollowell join us as our speaker for our graduate colloquium series. Ms. Hollowell joined the Vol family in September of 2019 and serves as the Assistant Director of Education Development in the Office of Equity and Diversity and the Division of Diversity and Engagement. She plays a critical role in developing organizational capacity to align the university's Vol values for advancing diversity and inclusion with its policies, practices, structures, climate, and culture through the coordination and facilitation of diversity education opportunities for students, staff, and faculty. She also facilitates diversity education training for the local K through 12 schools and community organizations. She serves as the chair of the Intercultural Development Inventory Advisory Board and is a member of the UT Libraries Diversity Committee. She's currently pursuing her PhD in Higher Education Administration here at UTK. So welcome, Ms. Hollowell.
Great, thank you, Dr. Hines, and thank you again, Deborah, for inviting me to join you on this evening. To everyone who is present, it is absolutely my pleasure to join you on this afternoon. And as I was telling Dr. Hines prior to us getting started, that I absolutely love to conduct these presentations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as we will talk about in a few minutes, our new strategic mission is actually excellence, equity, and inclusion. And so it's my pleasure to be here. Just a few opening comments. I do have lots of content. I was trying to get so much in here in this hour's time that we have. So I do discuss some foundational language terms and concepts. And so I'll go through those fairly quickly because we have a working knowledge of what these terms and some of these concepts mean. But I did want to make sure to touch on those to make sure that we're all on the same page, at least while we're in this space together on today. I also want to provide this disclaimer. As I was saying, I think prior to when we got started, I've been experiencing technical issues with my system as far as sometimes Zoom and PowerPoint, they don't play well together. And so sometimes I've been experiencing some glitches. Sometimes I'm not able to proceed with the presentation, and I've had OIT in my office about 6 times in the last about 6 weeks. So hopefully we have it resolved, but I just wanted to forewarn you in the event that it happens that you will be merciful and gracious until I can tap myself out and get things turned back around, but I don't foresee that happening. I want to thank Ashley for her support on today. In order to diminish the opportunity that we would have issues, I've sent a couple of video clips in advance so that she can show those for us and make it a smoother process. We will have a 1-hour presentation today. I will be providing information, but I will stop along the way and check in with you and say what resonates with you. Are there any ahas? Does anyone have any thoughts? Please, please, please feel free to unmute or to use the chat to share your thoughts. As much as possible, I would like for this to be somewhat participatory, to share in learning in this space. And then again, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be with you on today. And I'm thrilled to be here. So let's give it a try and see if my technology is going to let me get started. Hey, there we go. And so our objectives for today is to bring awareness to and develop an appreciation for the university's strategic mission to excellence, equity, and inclusion across the state and in all of our global activities. And that is verbatim from the newly launched strategic plan and strategic vision, specifically for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Also, to foster a shared vision to collectively move forward the work of cultivating a welcoming and inclusive campus environment where all vols matter and belong, and specifically for you there in the nuclear engineering community to help you to do this work within. And then that's at a more corporate or global perspective at the institutional level, and then down to the departmental level. But I also want to distill it down just a little bit further. Lastly, to encourage a personal commitment to support the Department of Nuclear Engineering's DEI goals in alignment with the university's strategic vision for excellence, equity, and inclusion. So today's session will include education, conversation, and reflection. And we will cover 4 main areas: the VOL mission for excellence, equity, and inclusion; the big picture, meaning the division of diversity and engagement. I would like to introduce you to the division. Third, discussion of some foundational DEI terms and concepts, again, to establish kind of a common thinking, a common language for us today. And then fourth, that personal reflection piece. And then again, this session will end approximately at 3 o'clock, and we will have 30 minutes for a Q&A. And so I encourage you, if your schedule permits you, to please stay and join us in that conversation. It's definitely in those spaces and those times when the ahas happen, either while we're thinking through and processing and we actually hear ourselves speak it into the space, right? Or when we hear someone else, usually there will be some type of light bulb that says, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way, right? So if you can, please stay with us for a conversation. And so first of all, I'd like to get to know you a little bit. And so please, this is the opportunity right from the start for you to unmute or to use the chat, but share some of the wonderful things that you're already doing in nuclear engineering, programs, services, initiatives that you're already engaged in, which align with the university's mission to excellence, equity, and inclusion. And at this time, I'm just going to ask that the DIAC folks would please stand down, because you're entrenched in the work. You're helping to lead this work. So certainly, you know, probably have a full picture of all the wonderful things that are going on. But what are some of the things that nuclear engineering is already engaged in? Someone please share. Anyone? Okay, how could someone from DIAC help us out?
Hey, Lorna, this is Deborah. I see we have Robbie and Lisa here as well, if they want to jump in. And DIAC, we, in response to a town hall open to students, faculty, and staff, we created an initiative where we started several activities within the department and extended it to the local community, particularly trying to recruit a more diverse pool of participants for the department, and created some opportunities for training to hoping to increase retention.
Yes.
And I leave to Robbie and Alyssa if they want to add anything else.
Please do.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done within the last year or so, with the help of our IT, Ashley in particular, and with the help of Dr. Hayward, is we've implemented or added a section on the department webpage, making it very clear that we have fee waivers for grad school application, because we really don't want people to have the cost of applying to grad school be a barrier for growing our department, and we want to make sure that particularly people from groups that are more economically disadvantaged are able to apply, so that we can consider them rather than having them left out from consideration entirely because they can't afford to apply.
Wonderful. That's accessibility right there. You removed the barriers from the onset. And so thank you for sharing. And Deborah, when you said earlier increasing the diverse population, were you speaking specifically to students, or were you thinking about faculty and staff as well?
Well, within DIAC, we are trying to focus on all aspects, right? Because we believe that if we increase representation, that also helps us attract other people and also retain them, right? But we've been addressing it differently. The department has been very supportive, particularly Dr. Hines has, listened to our recommendations and implemented a variety of items. So a short answer to your question, yes, we want to attract and retain a diverse pool of students, faculty, and staff.
Wonderful. And I'm sure if I pulled your diversity action plan, I sat on the committee that reviewed those, but I don't think I had the pleasure of sitting in on the one for technical engineering. But I'm sure if I was to pull your diversity action plan, that's probably written expressly in there. So yes, I did want to say that I know of some of the wonderful things that nuclear engineering is doing, and I'll share those in just a moment. But again, I commend you for doing this work. We think about our society, when we think about our world, if we think about the last 2 years, and I call it the tri-pandemic, right? We have the COVID pandemic that brought to light what we from marginalized populations already knew, the disparities in healthcare and education and even in broadband and Wi-Fi, right? And healthcare, all of these areas. And so we had the COVID pandemic, right? And then we also had a racial pandemic that played out in the form of protests and marches spilling out into our streets saying enough is enough. We found young and Black and old and white and Latino and Asian and purple and striped and polka dot. Everyone was out there, right? Marching together saying it's time for change. And then, and that of course was the result of the murder of George Floyd. And then thirdly, a very divisive, a very polarizing political pandemic, right? That divided this country right down the middle. And so all three of these together working in concert really created the perfect storm, if you will, the perfect circumstances for this work, because we found people divided not only by political affiliation and income and culture and race and identity, but also, difference of opinion, mask or not mask, or vaccinate or unvaccinated. And certainly those conversations are still being had. So we certainly are in a time in our society, as we've always been, honestly, for us to explore ways that we can be culturally competent, where we can be respectful, where we can be civil, right? And so what we're finding is that these are some of the very goals of our campus. And I'll unpack that and discuss that a little bit more in a moment. But some of the wonderful things that nuclear engineering is doing to support excellence in equity and inclusion. So first,
Dr. Hollowell,
yes.
I'm sorry. So this is Dr. Hines. I just want to interrupt just for a second and say that, the majority of the audience is our graduate students. And as a student, you don't always know, and you don't always see what's going on behind the scenes. And that's really on me to maybe not always communicate everything that I think that they may be interested in. When I was a graduate student, I was interested in working hard, getting my research done. I think students now are much more have much more diversified, interests. They're interested in these other topics and social equality and these types of things. So maybe I don't communicate as well. For many years in our strategic plan, and we've been doing strategic planning probably for 30 years in our department. One of our goals is to increase the or maybe balance the diversity of our department. I think our goal is similar to the goal of the university, where we would like the student body of our department to be representative of the student body, the graduating student body of the state of Tennessee.
Yes.
And we're not there, right? So we work on that. And the college has had really good programs for years. Some of the summer program, the MITES program, the TITES program. We have special recruiting for underrepresented. And underrepresented in the college of engineering isn't just minority, it's, you know, women
Women,
is very
yes.
important to us too. Our
Yes.
last two hires have been some fabulous women faculty that are doing great things. So it's really a challenge. You have to do a lot of networking before and put in a lot of foundational work to actually be able to make those hires that help us match the diversity of our state. So we want our students to match the state, and then we want our faculty to match the students. You know, if we have, you know, 30% women, then we want to have 30% women faculty. We want those number of women to move up towards 50%, because I have a feeling our state's probably about 50% women, 50% men. And the same thing with Black and Latino, and you know, so we're working on that. We put in a lot of effort on that, and the college puts in a lot of effort in that, and I think the last couple years have opened our eyes to a lot of things, and there have been new ideas of what we can do to help make that happen. You know, we no longer require GRE exams for our graduate applicants. We don't require ACT for undergraduate applicants. So we are trying to remove these barriers, whether they're barriers that might have biased outcomes such as those, or whether they're financial barriers. And we're willing to invest our resources to meet these goals. So I just want to give you a little bit of an overview from a department head point of view of big picture of what we're trying to do.
I certainly appreciate that, Dr. Hines. You were so in my presentation, and certainly that is the common rule of thumb, is that we do want our workforce, be it faculty, staff, to reflect the population in which we are situated. We want to look at how our student population can reflect whatever, you know, area geographically that we're in. So right on target with that. And yes, there's work to do. The entire institution, we realize that there is work to do. When you talk about recruiting diverse populations, you talk about removing those barriers. You're going to find me talk about that in just a few minutes. And when we remove the barriers for one population or a set of populations, it benefits the entire institution. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Larry, did you have something that you wanted to add?
No, it's just a mistake.
Oh, okay. No worries about that. I will share this for graduate students, something humorous that one of my sons said to me. He said this to me a few years ago. He said, "Mama," now I'm gonna have to talk home talk, "Mama, we get it. Our generation gets it. It was your generation that was tripping." So yes, Dr. Hines, this generation, they get it. And they're compassionate about social justice, about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so I'm just going to proceed us along, but thank you for sharing. And so these are some of the wonderful things that I found that the Department of Engineering is doing. So your pledge for allyship, social justice, diversity, and inclusion. And I found this quote here: "Our department is committed to taking action against implicit and explicit biases." And so this is a quote here. It says here, "You have no doubt seen the countless statements condemning the killing of George Floyd." So this is what preface it says here: "We join the multitude of voices expressing shock and outrage that have been faced by the Black community. It's time to quit talking. It's time to start walking and doing." It says here, "The time for making statements has passed. Now it's time for thoughtful and meaningful action. In this pursuit of transparent and measurable progress that we outline our first set of actions to address the effects of implicit and implicit biases in our department. The faculty and staff of the University of Tennessee Nuclear Engineering Department pledge to," and here's a whole list of bullets here, and I'm going to jump around, but some of the ones that really resonated with me that I know tie directly with the goals of our campus-wide diversity action plan, our goals and our objectives around excellence and equity and inclusion. So the first one is to establish a diversity, equity, and inclusion action committee, which you've done. So check, congratulations. Not checking it off the list because we know there's much work to be done there. Also to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion into our culture and curriculum. to increase diversity of invited seminar speakers. Hey, we're doing it right now, even as I speak. Also, include additional graduate student representation into faculty searches. To create additional opportunities for open feedback from our students. To implement recruitment and retention initiatives for undergraduate and graduate students. And so those are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight. And in the photos here, I'm going to call out to you all and ask me, does anybody know what's happening in either of the three photos that are included on this slide? Can anybody unmute and help us out?
Yeah, hi, this is Lawrence Heilbrunn. I'm actually in that photo in the upper right hand. So that's a summer activity that the College of Engineering runs. And so these are four high school students that we hope to recruit to the University of Tennessee. And we engage in a week-long research project. And so that was a picture taken at the end of the project.
Woohoo, congratulations. So these were high school students and now they're currently students?
I think one student in that group did come to the University of Tennessee.
Okay, great.
Not nuclear engineering, but came to University of Tennessee.
Hey, we'll take them any way they come. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you for the work you're doing. What about the other one in my top left-hand corner? Does anybody know what's going on there? It was an award. Oh, does someone have it?
Yeah, I know what's going on up there. That's in the middle, that's Amanda Bachman, who she did her bachelor's and master's here, and she was and still is very involved in the Women in Nuclear organization, and she was receiving an award for her involvement and leadership in that organization.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robbie. And then at the bottom left, I think, Deborah, you're going to be able to help us with that one. My bottom right, excuse me.
I think everyone could help you with that one. That is Alyssa Hayes, who is a brilliant student in the department who has been very involved in DEAC and a variety of DEI activities.
Great. Is Alyssa with us today?
I am. Hello.
Hey, congratulations. There you are. I bet you didn't expect this, did you?
I was like, oh, that's a picture of me when it was built up.
We are celebrating you. Congratulations. So those are just some of the wonderful things that I found that nuclear engineering is doing around diversity, equity, excellence, and inclusion. And so the first major section of today's presentation is the Ball mission for excellence, equity, and inclusion. And Ashley, if you want to get ready, that video clip will come up in just a moment here. And so this is the goal here. At the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, we commit to excellence, equity, inclusion within, I'm going to have to move our university, across the state, and in all of our global activities. So that is expressly written as a goal in our new strategic plan that was recently launched a couple of months ago. So I do have a video clip that I would like to share. This work is very, very important from the very top of our organization, so much so it is written into our strategic plan. It's a strategic vision, strategic goals. And so I would like to bring the chancellor, the provost, some of our other administrators into the room to talk with us about the importance of this work. Ashley, you can take us away. You probably have to go back and share the sound.
That. I want this vision to be transformational because I think we're in the business of transforming lives. So we need to say how we're going to do that. I would like to be transforming how we think about higher education.
It's an exciting time, I think, at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, as we kind of think about who we're going to be 5 years from now.
My favorite part of the vision, I think it has to be how bold it is.
It's extremely bold. It's putting those ideas to action, to support the community, to respond to the needs of our students, to respond to the needs of the state the global community.
Previous strategic visions really were, I would say, incremental in their intention. With this vision, we're really looking at the sort of essence of what we do and making sure that it's right for the times that we're living in.
I think the favorite part of the vision for me is a broader reach. We're going to engage new learners. We're going to impact a different population of learners in the future.
We attract a lot of people from different backgrounds and come to our community, and I interact with them. And that is the enriching part of it, because I'm not expert on everything. I'm not a Superman. I want to learn every day.
I want the rest of the world to understand the research and scholarship that our faculty are doing that really truly makes the world a better place. So no matter where you live on the planet, I want the University of Tennessee to be known for the kind of outcomes we develop.
As far as we can take our ideas to new places, and being part of the Modern Land Grant is taking those to our people in our state and then beyond our state to the world.
It's very clear that the University of Tennessee aspires as a 21st century land grant to change the lives of people in communities, to take the university to the people rather than sitting back and waiting for others to come to the university.
Every Tennessean, regardless of your background, regardless of your identity, regardless of your experiences, you have a place here at the university.
It's really incredible, the expertise, the dedication, the passion that we all bring to this. We can do this.
Each day around the corner and I see the torchbearer, and I'm reminded of just how unique we are as a campus. And I think we have the talent, we have the infrastructure, we have the resources, and people are looking to us already.
I've been here a long time, and what has always impressed me is the fact that people here really want to help one another. They really want to make a difference. It's a multiplier effect. You get individual volunteers, you bring them all together under the umbrella of the strategic vision, and together we change the world.
Thank you, Ashley. No matter how many times I see that video clip, I am inspired every single time. What a beautiful presentation. And so while we switch our views here, let's see if I can go back and share my screen now. So what thoughts do we have about It Takes a Volunteer, our strategic vision? What resonated? What language, what phrases resonated? Just anyone. What were your thoughts about that video clip?
For me, I think one of the biggest takeaways, at least from the phrase, "it takes a volunteer," is taking initiative. Right? It's one thing to just identify with the volunteer spirit as a student and a grad student at the University of Tennessee, but it's another to embody it and actually be the person that steps up and goes to the DAT meetings and proposes initiatives and then actually sends the emails to do them. And so, yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit extra out of our day and it takes a little bit of time and effort, but I think that's really what it means to be a volunteer.
Exactly, Alyssa, you've articulated it so well. We are vols, but we also vol, and vol is a verb. That means we roll our sleeves up, right? And it's all hands on deck. We have those difficult conversations. Sometimes we have to interrupt some stuff, right? And so thank you. I hope everyone found this video clip to be inspirational. I know that I did. Like I said, every time I watch it, I do. And so there's only one way to look at things until someone shows us how to look at them with different eyes. And that's from Pablo Picasso. And so when we think about this work that we endeavor to do, the one thing that I want you to keep in mind and to look at through different eyes is that diversity, excellence in diversity, equity, and inclusion, what we call DEI, is every Vol's responsibility on Rocky Top. And there you have it, Alyssa. Vol is a verb. Be you, bear the torch. And that means to get out there and get busy. And while we have a division of diversity and engagement that consists, there may be 40 of us. I don't even know if there's that many. But while we have a division of diversity and engagement that is charged with championing and leading this work, it's going to take all of us, because us 40 or whatever number that it is, we are not in the classroom learning spaces. We're not in the dorms and living spaces. We're not going to be at the extracurricular activities, right? We can't be all over campus, but certainly each of us are somewhere where we can make an impact. And so this is from our, it takes a Vol strategic plan, is that we ensure a culture where Vol is a verb. And so we endeavor to develop and sustain a nurturing university culture where diversity and community are enduring sources of strength. And so we are creating a commitment to inclusive learning and work environments where there is civility, accountability, cultural competency, and ensuring equitable access, right, to all on Rocky Top. That we value and affirm differences in race, culture, worldviews, beliefs, identities, and abilities. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? And to accomplish these goals, faculty, students, and staff all working together. What you all have already included in your goals and objectives, right? And what we found written there in your pledge to allyship and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Secondly, to challenge students to examine their understandings of the world and their capacity to act as members of an inclusive community, right? And so we want the students, we want to prepare them for the world of work, or their next level in education, service, whatever it is that they endeavor to do, to have an inclusive community here, but also to prepare them for the real world as well. Lastly, to nurture change that supports inclusive behaviors and a culture of respectful dialogue, greater understanding of difference. And listen to the last sentence there, starting with our administration, faculty, and staff. So it's got to start with us. It's got to start at the top. And to all of our graduate students out there, just so that you know that we endeavor to lead in doing this work, it's got to start with leadership, right? So secondly, the big picture, the division of diversity and engagement. And so I wrote there, one of my favorite sayings and my mantra is everyone on Rocky Top. Remember, we're looking through different eyes. Everyone on Rocky Top, we're a part of the team in getting this work done for the benefit of all. And so if you go to the website of diversity and engagement, this is where you'll land. And it will tell you that we're working to create a campus where everyone matters and belongs. And it says that we are committed to supporting the creation, as I said, of equitable and inclusive learning and workspaces. We want to remove structural barriers. We want to foster an atmosphere where every member of the campus community matters and belongs. We want to advance access, accountability, and an inclusive campus environment and equity, while also, so that's the one side, the more warm and fuzzy side, we are the world, right? But on this other side, we want to combat racism, bias, and discrimination. So a two-pronged effort there. So here's our fearless leader of everything diversity, Tyvee Small, Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Engagement. Our division, excuse me, technology bleep there. More of a human bleep though, honestly. Let's see if we can get ourselves going here. The mission of the division is to collaborate with campus and external communities to create inclusive learning and work environments. We want to cultivate partnerships support initiatives. We want to advocate for policies that promote everything that I just said: civility, accountability, cultural competency, and equitable access to resources and opportunities. And so the division is comprised of 3 units. The Office of the Vice Chancellor, Tivy Small. In there, we have the Executive Director of Diversity and Engagement, Special Projects. We also have some wonderful graduate research assistants. And I actually used to be in that unit, but in the last year and a half, I was transferred over to the Office of Equity and Diversity, which is led by Dr. Catrice Morgan, who's our now Associate Vice Chancellor and Director. In here, we also have ADA and EEO, also compliance, investigations for the staff and faculty side of the house. For students, when you have grievances around diversity, equity, and inclusion, you want to contact the individuals who do bias work, which is through Student Life. Those individuals are more than happy to support you with these types of issues. Also Title IX for some of those other issues. And then the 3rd unit is the Office of Community Engagement and Outreach, led by Dr. Javiette Samuel, the Assistant Vice Chancellor, and her folks. And the importance of community engagement and outreach is that when we become members of the VOL community, by default, especially those of us who are transplants who move into Rocky Top, into Knoxville, by default, we become members of the wider community. And so we want to work with our community partners and agencies and educational partners to do this work around equity and inclusion in our community as well. And so we do this work through our framework for inclusive excellence. And so you see there all of these various areas that actually overlap. So we talk about education, yours truly, assessment and accountability, engagement and outreach, and also access and compliance. All of those overlapping and intertwined, and at its core to create this inclusive culture and campus environment for all vols. So we also do this work through the Chancellor's Commissions and Council. And so we are a federal contractor. We receive federal funding. And so we are mandated to provide services and resources and support to individuals from marginalized populations. And to help us in doing that work, we have the Commission for Blacks. We have the Commission for LGBT people. We have the Commission for Women. We also have the Council for Diversity, and it's now been changed to Inclusion, but this council represents various other populations on campus. Maybe it's veterans or first gen. We want to make sure that we address all the various areas and populations and identities on campus. Our newest commission is the Commission for People with Disabilities. This commission was launched about a year ago, and then we have 2 more that are in the hopper. We have the Commission for Asian Pacific Islanders, and we also have a commission for Latinx people. And so we are ever growing and increasing our resources to serve individuals from various minoritized populations. Any questions there? I've presented a lot of information, first of all, talking about our strategic vision and goals for excellence in equity and inclusion, and then also just a brief introduction to the Division of Diversity and Engagement and our related commissions and our vision and mission.
You may be getting to this later, but if there are anything that you want to say about how, if our students wanted to be more involved with your office and what you do, if there are opportunities, how those opportunities are communicated.
Okay, great. That's a great question. Thank you, Dr. Hines. So I will say that our office here functions primarily to serve faculty and staff around issues of equity and inclusion and protected classes and grievances and investigations. But we do work collaboratively with many units on campus to ensure that we support students as well. And so for students, I would actually direct you to Multicultural Student Life and to Student Life, to the Jones Center, definitely to the various intercultural and diverse student organizations, also organizations that are within the various units and the colleges to serve and support students from diverse, marginalized international populations, and also to provide education and services to all students from dominant culture, from wherever you sit or stand, whatever your program is. And to be honest, the work that we do in equity and diversity actually benefits the entire campus. Specifically from my office though, education and development, I do provide, and it's actually my joy to conduct presentations for student organizations, for fraternities, for sororities, for student groups. I've conducted presentations for the Mindfulness Club, for the rugby team, for once I was asked to conduct a presentation for one of the fraternities on campus, and I had never been in a frat house before. And what an experience that was. I walked in and the area was packed and they were all up against the walls, and they were very respectful. I had a wonderful time. The energy was great in there. And I was a little bit of Miss Hollowell, diversity and engagement. I was a little bit of Mama Hollowell, and we just had a great time. But certainly for you as students, I will provide my information at the end of the presentation. If you would like to engage in a roundtable discussion or just something more informal, if you are in a group or a club or a frat or a sorority and would like to have a diversity speaker, I'm more than happy to come in and provide that service. Also, book reads, if you want a facilitator for a book read or maybe a movie debrief. I did a debrief not too long ago for Thug. The movie is, the acronym is Thug, but it's called The Hate You Give. You might want to look that up. And so certainly while the office's goals and objectives lean more toward the faculty staff side of the house, I am certainly here to provide educational opportunities for our students. Thank you again, Dr. Hines. That was a good question. So let's get to the third section of our presentation for today is foundational DEI terms and concepts. And the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, I hope I've pronounced his name correctly, says a diverse mix of voices leads to better discussions, decisions, and outcomes for everyone. And so diversity, we know what that means. It can be broadly defined to include all aspects of human difference: race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, gender identification, religion, disability, socioeconomic status, status as a veteran. It can be first gen, it could be non-English speakers, right? It's all of these wonderful ways in which we differ. And that term is adopted by the American Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. When we think about diversity, it is very broad at its core, it's global, right? Also that inner circle there that's kind of different shades of green. When I ask about what is the definition of diversity, what do we think of when we think of diversity? That's those key characteristics that I just mentioned from our definition. But when we expand the definition and look more broadly, we find work style, educational level, geographical location, military experience, income, first language, organizational role and level, communication style, family status. And when we look at all of these wonderful attributes of diversity, and we think about how we fit in our selfhood and all the various identities that we embody that make us who we are, we think of that term of intersectionality. It's all of these various attributes, right? And identities that we possess. And when we think about intersectionality, we think about Kimberly Crenshaw was an attorney and she's faculty. She was at Columbia and she coined that term to talk about how individuals from underrepresented populations embody these various identities that often are layered one on top of one another. They intersect, right? And sometimes it leads to greater levels of discrimination. Because for me, for example, I am an African, American, or Black female. Those two of my identities. When I was a divorced single mom, there's two other identities. All of those marginalized identities on top of one another can lead to more discrimination and less opportunities for access, right? And we think about some of those things that we talked about earlier when we talked about the tri-pandemic: access to healthcare, access to education, maybe access to housing, right? All of these identities intersecting and overlapping with one another. And so there she is, Kimberly Crenshaw. And I actually had the pleasure to hear her speak in person. And she said intersectionality is just a metaphor for understanding the ways that multiple forms of inequality or disadvantage sometimes compound themselves. They create obstacles that often are not understood within conventional ways of thinking about anti-racism or feminism or whatever social justice advocacy structures we have. And so again, it's those compounding identities. When we think about inclusion, it's the intentional and active and ongoing engagement of diversity. It's in our curriculum, our co-curricular activities in our various communities, be it intellectual, social, culture, all of these ways that we connect to increase our awareness, our knowledge, our cognitive sophistication, our empathetic ways of understanding, all these ways that we interact and engage with one another in various systems and institutions. And certainly this space that we're in right now, we have community, right? When we think about if you're sitting in one of your engineering classes, that is a community. We think about UTK, that's a wider community, but we're a part of another community within Knoxville, within our state and across our globe, as we saw in our strategic vision that we want to impact with this work. When we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, these terms are often used interchangeably. Want to spend a minute on each of those. Diversity is representation. It's what we see, it's what we count, the different identities and cultures, right? Inclusion, and you see that table there, we use that expression of who's at the table, right? And so it's the participation, it is the experience that individuals from various populations have within a space or an organization, but it's much more than that. When we think about who's at the table, it's not just saying who's invited to the table, because you can invite someone to the table, but not have them take a seat, maybe don't even have a chair. We can invite them and seat them, but maybe not give them food. We can give them food, maybe not utensils, right? Because this is about access, right? It's about one's lived experience. We could give them food and utensils, but maybe we do not acknowledge their presence. Maybe we do not engage them in conversation. And if we do, maybe we don't ask their opinions. And if they do voice their opinions, right? Their opinions fall on deaf ears. Maybe they're not even taken advantage of or considered, right? Maybe they put forth ideas and maybe it's beyond the norm. It's not the way things have always been done around here, right? And so not only that, but are their ideas heard? And then do they have power? So we're asking, are they invited to the table? Are they included? Are they valued? Are they acknowledged? Do they have voice? Do they have power? And we think about positionality. Are they in positions of influence, decision-making, and leadership? So when we think about inclusion, it's much more than being invited to the table. And then we think about equality, and we also think about equity, right? And so equity is us implementing policies, practices, procedures to ensure equitable outcomes. And sometimes equality and equity are also used interchangeably. So equality means that we're giving everybody the same. We're being fair. On its face, it's very, very good. It comes from a very good place. But equality and giving everyone the same is sometimes not enough for some. So we hear people say, well, they got the same as everyone else. Why can't them people get themselves together? What's wrong with the purple people? Why can't they get themselves together, right? Well, when we look at an equity model, we want to make sure that people have what they need, the resources, the services, right, to even the playing field. We hear that term all the time. So we see the tallest person there didn't need a box at all. The one in the middle really didn't have to have a box either, but gave them more access, right? But the shortest person there actually had no access unless maybe they could, peep through the little slat there, but actually they needed 2 boxes and woo, they're celebrating. But let's look at a social justice model here. The reality is that some people, not only do they not need resources, but they're over-resourced, and often they are the ones that control the resources, right? The ones in the middle, they have access, the one box is sufficient, but the shortest ones, the ones with least resources, the marginalized, actually started a deficit, they start in a hole. They have no access. When we look at the equality model, everyone's given the same, not enough and not sufficient for some folks at all. Then we look at this equity model, everyone gets what they need. But when we look at a social justice model, we remove the barriers for everyone so everyone has access, right? And I've been giving this presentation, I've been using this illustration. Yesterday was the first time that it dawned on me as I prepared for today's presentation was, why are these 3 not in the stands? Why were they behind the fence in the first place? And while the barriers have been removed, they're still standing on the sidelines. So there's still work to do, that they are actually seated in the stands with everyone else. I had a paradigm shift. What are anyone's thoughts? Anything resonate with anyone as we look at this social justice model to equality and equity? I'm going to keep us moving because our time. Just another illustration. We find the person here in the wheelchair says, could you please shovel the ramp? And the gentleman shoveling says, all these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I will clear the ramp for you. And then they say, but if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in. So clearing the path for people with special needs or needs for access clears the path for everyone. Everybody benefits. When we think about culture, it's the customary beliefs and social norms, the traits that a religious, racial, or social group share in common in their day-to-day life and existence. And this leads us to the cultural iceberg. This just helps to show us that there is surface culture and deep culture. There is external culture and internal culture. This surface culture is really what we engage with on the outside. It's kind of like the diversity piece. It's very external, very surfacey. When we think about exploring other cultures, we think about what they wear, their food, their holidays, their observances, their language, right? Their history. That's just a start. But if we're really going to do this work around excellence in equity and inclusion, we have to take a deep dive and go below the surface. And that's where we talk about communication styles and roles and body language and touching and language, right? And how people act in social situations, they're displaying or not displaying of emotions, notions of courtesy and manners and modesty and beauty. So we wonder, why does that person smell that way? Why do they dress that way? Why do they act and move about the way that they do, right? Why do they engage or not engage? Maybe they don't engage in mixed company. Maybe they don't engage with individuals from the opposite sex, right? Or a different gender identity group. Concepts of time, fairness, justice, roles related to age and gender and class and family, right? Attitudes toward elders and rules and expectations and work and authority, right? These are all deeply held beliefs and values, ways of knowing and ways of doing that are very, very deep within our own belief systems and values, right? But the thing about it is that while we're engaging on the surface, it would appear it's just surface, but we're actually engaging with one another's deep culture on the surface on a day-to-day basis. That is the beauty of the cultural iceberg, and I wish I had more time to talk about that. When we think about microaggressions, these are comments or actions that are often unconscious and unintentional that often express some type of prejudice attitude toward a member of a marginalized group, such as a racial or a religious identity or a minority, right? There are remarks and questions and actions that people find painful because they have to do with people's memberships in a group that's often discriminated against, or that is the subject of stereotypes. And what makes them so disconcerting is that they happen frequently, casually, often without any harm intended. And it's like a drop. It's a continual drop. And people say, oh, I was just joking. Oh, you're being too sensitive. Oh, I don't see color. That comes from a very good place. But if you don't see color, you don't see my wonderful caramel skin. You don't see someone else's freckles and red hair. You don't see someone else's beautiful chocolate skin, right? And it's not just about what we see on the outside, that external surface, but then we don't see the beautiful differences, way of knowing and doing, beliefs and values that can be brought into our spaces that enrich our experiences and create a place where we matter and belong, right? And so they're happening constantly. And although there's no pain intended, there's actually much damage to the receiver of those things, such as you speak English so well, and where are you from? No, but where are you really from? As if a person doesn't know where they're from. So here are some examples. You just don't understand. I can't believe you stayed so calm. Females are so emotional. You don't look gay. So where are your papers? Or that again, where are you from? No, we have an African-American male saying, no, I don't play basketball. I'm Black and I'm tall, but I'm not here on an athletic scholarship. I'm actually here on an academic scholarship. And then the last one there, that was not offensive. You are being sensitive. So this sense of invalidating someone's experiences, right? Some of the ways that microaggressions show up: not pronouncing or spelling an individual's name correctly, interrupting an individual when they are speaking, a lack of awareness of personal space and personal boundaries. So reaching out to touch someone's hair, reaching out to touch a pregnant woman's stomach, right? Dismissing an individual's opinion or perspective, ignoring individuals in meetings and in the workplace. That goes back to the inclusion and who's at the table, who's in the room, right? And so we have another video clip, and I think we have room for this one, time for this one, and we're almost at the end here. But Ashley, if you will take us away, and some people may think, oh, that doesn't happen here at UTK. That doesn't happen here in the College of Nuclear Engineering. But let's hear what some of these students have to say from other colleges.
Well, here at UNT, I've heard, you're so pretty for a Black girl. I feel like it discounts me as a person, and then I feel like it discounts my race. I feel like you can be pretty just because you're a woman, or, you know, or all Black women are beautiful, all people of color are beautiful, just the same as people that are not people of color. So for them to make that specific statement, that's what I'm like, why? What in you made you say that to me? As if it were a compliment.
So another type of micro insult is when students in the classroom are dismissed or treated almost as if they're invisible. For instance, in some of our sciences or engineering classes, there are few women, and professors often don't call on those women.
I had one instance in a statistics-based class where we were discussing something bell curve related, and he presented a question, and I don't remember exactly what the answer was, but I answered it, and he kind of doubted me. And he very condescendingly was just like, oh, okay, well, I mean, like, this is the best answer, but I guess your answer could be right. You know what, we'll ask, it was a grad student. He was like, you know what, we'll ask Dr. So-and-so and see what he thinks the best answer is. And there was no apology or anything. He was just like, oh yeah, Dr. So-and-so said that, yeah, that was actually a really acceptable answer. And I was just like, okay. What else is he going to doubt me on, and when else am I going to be called out in front of 70 other people, you know, and have a weird exchange that makes the whole room quiet? Like
one of my science classes, my teacher had asked what I wanted to do, and I told the teacher that I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and immediately they're like, that's too hard for you, maybe you should try a different field, or have you ever thought about being a nurse practitioner? Nurse practitioners in psychiatry make pretty well, they make a lot of money too. Have you thought about that? Like, why go to med school?
genuinely sometimes somebody might feel like they can't make it, and then when you continue to tell them that, it does hurt,
I've had a lot of professors tell me to my face that they were surprised that I was as good as a student as I was, and that I paid attention in class and actually participated. And when I asked why, they said, well, you just come off as a troublemaker. You have all these piercings and short hair as a girl and tattoos, and we just naturally assumed that you weren't really going to be any good.
Thank you, Ashley. So just think about, as we head toward the Q&A, have there been instances when individuals, especially students from diverse and marginalized populations, have felt situations when they felt unwelcome, prejudiced, or that they didn't matter? And so as we head toward our discussion, what would you do? What happened in these scenarios, and what could or should have been done? And so the last thing, for those of you that are going to have to leave the session, I want you to take just a minute, take it and make it personal. I want you to reflect as a member of the nuclear engineering community. I want you to think to yourself, I will make a personal commitment to support the vision for excellence, equity, and inclusion by. And so let's just take a minute and think. Take it and make it personal. Anyone want to share? If not, I'm Lorna Hollowell, Assistant Director of Education and Development here in the Office of Equity and Diversity in the Division of Diversity and Engagement. It is now time for our Q&A session. And Deborah, I guess we can just take a minute for a transition in case someone has to leave. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure.
I guess as we transition into this, when we first started this presentation, I thought to myself, why is this important, right? And I wrote down some thoughts there, and then I kind of made some notes a little bit as we went through. And there was the end of one of your statements had the word everyone on it. And that resonated because the first thing I said is give opportunities to everyone to pursue their dreams. But it's a lot more than that, because a lot of people don't even know they can dream. So that comes to where you talk about outreach. Your outreach, I think, has one of the major goals should be to let these people know that there is this dream and they can pursue it. Because if you grew up and you don't have any relatives that have a college education, you probably don't even think about a college education. You don't know that you have that dream or that you might want to pursue that dream. So that was just one of the statements. And I thought, kind of in a broader aspect, to allow everyone to enjoy and be fulfilled by their, during their time on Earth and their time at UT, to be accepted and to be treated with respect and to be successful. And when I look back and I looked at, to be successful, you talked about success and services, for equity. And you had I love that cartoon, but that you have to provide services for the equity so that everybody can be successful. I mean, that's my job as a department head, to try to make my faculty, staff, and students successful. And anyway, I just thought it all kind of tied together really well for me personally, that I could see a lot of the things that you were doing, and they impacted kind of the two big picture items that I wrote down on, why is this important? I just think that, everybody that's born on this earth should have an opportunity to have, to be successful, to follow their dreams, to do what they want, to have people respect them. And that's this whole civility and equality that I think we should all pursue, because, A, everybody deserves it, and B, I think it also makes me feel good when I can help in those ways.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. One thing I was thinking of when you were speaking, not only is it outreach in this global sense, but it's very much in reach. How are we reaching in within ourselves, within our divisions, within our department? What in reach work needs to be done within the College of Engineering and the various departments and units, right? Who within your midst has unmet needs? Who feels like they're not valued or included or welcomed? Who needs resources, right? So that they feel like they have access. So some of the wonderful things that you all are doing is your diet committee, right? And various wonderful speakers, right? And thinking about ways how we can do this work within ourselves, and that early strategic plan talked about us as faculty and staff, especially as we endeavor to lead our students, and for you students to know that we are doing this work on ourselves, within ourselves, so that we can serve you better, to provide you as students with a welcoming and inclusive campus environment, so that you feel like you have access, services, and resources. We're trying to do this work up here so that you have a better experience here. And I think about two ways when I think about those structures, those programs and procedures to ensure that we have equitable outcomes are the diversity action plan. That is a process by which every college and major unit has to devise and implement a plan for how they propose to do this work around recruitment and retention, around climate within their organizations, around graduate student success, right? All of these areas. So we have the diversity action plans that actually holds a college or a unit, especially their administrator, personally responsible for doing this work. We have to answer. So it's a roll-up model. But then for those on the staff side of the house, and I think they're working on faculty, but for staff, this will be the first year that there is a DEI component to the annual performance review. So individuals are having to and to share all of the work that they are doing. And I really like to say, to share all the wonderful things that they are doing to support the work around excellence, equity, and inclusion. So that's a roll down model. So it's a roll up and it's a roll. We're all being held accountable. And I know that many of the student organizations also have diversity action plans. They have goals and objectives. They are inviting in speakers. They're having discussions and conversations. So even our students have taken the initiative to do this work. So there's so many wonderful reasons, Dr. Hines, for why we are doing this work. And we want everyone to feel like that they have access and that we have outreach and inreach. Clarice, hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you loud and clear, dear.
Okay. I had a question about how do you ensure that the onus of responsibility for ensuring an equitable environment does not fall on the marginalized community?
Oh, that is such a good question. And that goes back to the very first thing that I see on your website about allyship and about being a vol and taking action. And so I have a session that I conduct called Understanding and Interrupting Microaggressions, where I go deep into microaggressions. And I talk about being a vol, right? We said is a verb, and that we take action. And so sometimes we have to interrupt, right? We can't just be a bystander. So it might be you, Clarice, maybe you hear someone say something that is racist or homophobic or xenophobic. And so for you, maybe you just step in, and it might be a more subtle approach like, hey, can you tell me, what did you mean by that comment? Could you is there some other way that maybe you could express that? Or it may be more invasive to say, you know, what you said, I'm sure it offended so-and-so because they don't look happy over there. They look very offended, right? And is there some other language that you could use here that maybe would not be so hurtful or offensive? What you said was really uncool. Do you feel how invasive that is? That's putting a person on the spot. And then checking in with that person from the marginalized population and saying, hey, it doesn't look like that went too well for you. You want to talk about it? Or can I get you a drink of water? Just checking in with that person, and also involving yourself with, even with your DIAC committee, and also looking for opportunities. Multicultural Student Life has a plethora of activities and events and opportunities for different committees and cultural groups that you can be a part of to do this work. Keep an eye out from information coming from the Division of Diversity and Engagement. I know they sent out an email yesterday about some diversity training, and I know myself, I'm preparing an email that's going to offer, I don't know, 10, 12 different types of sessions. And I see that Alyssa said that white male allyship is very important. Yes, it is. And Alyssa, do you want to elaborate upon that?
Yeah, the way I initially interpreted Clarice's question was like sometimes, or maybe oftentimes, a little bit more than just like the in passing microaggressions or bystander effect types of things, like the work to remove those barriers, the work to remove the effects entirely, oftentimes does fall on the backs of the people who needed the fence removed, instead of like the community coming in and like removing the fence together. And so that's why I kind of put in like, it's allyship isn't just, I mean, like allyship can take the form of like, oh, seeing somebody else and on your, in a day-to-day basis, have something happen. But usually I feel like I don't notice those things that often, either because like we're all isolated and a lot of stuff happens virtually and not as many people are like in the office, or perhaps it doesn't happen, you know, as often, or we just don't notice it as often. But I think the bigger way that allyship can come into play, or and not necessarily like, you know, just if you're a white man, that doesn't mean that like you're also not, that you also can't be marginalized in some way. If you speak another language primarily, or you have a disability, or you're part of the LGBTQ community. But in general, I think a lot of times people like, you know, see diversity, equity, inclusion and are like, oh, well, I'm not in those groups, so that space isn't for me. Like, while DEAC can be or can provide a safe space, that's not its primary goal. So they're like, just because if you're like a straight white man, that doesn't mean that you can't like also join DEAC and like help us do and accomplish a lot of the things that we're working towards. Because a lot of that labor otherwise would fall on the people in those same categories. And so I think that's kind of the basis of the direction that, I don't know where to end this, my spiel.
You're right on it, Alyssa. Definitely. That's why I talked about at the beginning, this broad sense of diversity, and that it's not about the Black people and the red people and the red and the yellow and the purple people and the gay people. It's not just about them people over there. It's about everyone in the house, everyone in the room, everyone on the globe, right? We talk about this broad sense of diversity whereby everyone can see themselves in this diversity equation, right? And so I think about the commissions and the council. Those are not just for individuals that are in those affinity groups. So if you go to the Council for Women, you're not going to just see individuals who identify as women there, but you're going to see individuals that identify as men, that identify as non-binary or gender fluid. Everyone's going to be in the house. If you go to the Commission for People with Disabilities, there's going to be able-bodied there. There's going to be individuals there because they are interested, they want to serve, they want to support. And so I love this conversation around taking the burden off of the individuals that are the victims or the ones that are minoritized, because that's usually, as an individual has various identities that are marginalized, it's a very, very heavy lift for me to constantly have to educate, constantly have to teach, constantly have to correct, constantly have to ally, constantly have to dismantle, right? That is a very, very heavy lift. I hope that that was a good response. That was such a good conversation. What other thoughts do we have?
Clarice, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I had a follow-up on the allyship. And sometimes, and this is something that I have to admit for myself. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, I have to make sure because the microphone's kind of far away. But sometimes, people can interpret allyship as their voice will not be heard unless someone else co-signs on it. And
Yes.
I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, allyship is more than just speaking, it's advocating, it's also joining, supporting, empowering individuals, right? And so we want to create spaces that are equitable so that individuals are not, again, only at the table, but they have voice, power, and they don't have to ask for it. It's there, right? It's not a matter of us granting them and giving them permission to use their voice, to have power, to express their opinions, but just creating a space where individuals can be.
So I wanted to make a comment that we probably have 400 individuals in our department. And I don't always hear of opportunities to assist in these types of activities. I don't hear about if someone is speaking ways that they shouldn't be. In the past, these opportunities have come up. I've had a female student who has taken her qualifier, said the group of boys or a group of men that were taking their qualifier were having some inappropriate conversations before the test, and it made her feel uncomfortable. The next seminar we canceled, and we had someone from the OED come in and give us a seminar on civility. Sometimes we have to stop what we're doing and really think about what we're doing and how we're going to move forward. So I just want to, and it's difficult, I think, for students to have that trust in someone that they don't know very well. And most of the students don't know me very well, but I just want to reach out to all the students, say, if you have a resource need, if you have a challenge that the department can help you on, please, reach out to me. If you want it to be in a confidential way, it will be, unless it's in something that I'm a mandatory reporter for. If you have a need, if you have a challenge, I don't know about it. So, and the only way I can learn about it is for you to communicate it with me. If DEAC has a way of maybe that we need to set up some more of a confidential communication method, happy to work on that too. If someone doesn't feel like they can come out and say something, that they need to do it in an anonymous manner, we could try to work on setting something like that up if there seems to be a need out there.
Yes. Dr. Hines, I'm sharing on my screen for students, the Bias Education and Referral Team. The purpose is for individuals to be able to report incidents of bias and other issues that they might be facing. They feel threatened. All you have to do is just type in Bias Educational Referral, BERT. And this is here for all types of different incidents that may happen on campus. There is an online document that you can click on and someone will get in contact with you. But there is a mechanism if you want to go out of the college, out of the department. And then I forgot to do this at the onset to commend Deborah Pinchoff, because I know she's working on a wonderful website. I had the opportunity to have a sneak peek, and I have been doing this work directly with diversity, equity, inclusion for about 17 years. That is the absolute best website I have ever seen. I was so impressed. It is so comprehensive. It is so colorful. It's very interactive. And I just wanted to commend you for that. And I think in there, if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be a space for individuals to report incidents such as these within the college, within various departments. So I think that you all are already in the works of that, Dr. Hines. I think it's something that's already in the hopper.
I'd like to commend Deborah too. You mentioned a few minutes ago about staff now have expectations on their annual reviews. our faculty do too. Our faculty, we have very explicit expectations in teaching, research, and service, and in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we try to get, we don't expect, we don't think it's right to have expectations for the staff and not have some similar type of expectations for the faculty. So Deborah helped us put those together very early on.
Deborah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Hines.
So a couple things to say. First, the website is ready. We're going through approvals with the college to be able to open it up. We don't have a specific section to report incidents, but we have a contact us filling page, right? Like where you can put in your information and contact us for anything you need. I think as of issues, what Dr. Hines was saying, it falls more under the openness to come talk to us. And as long as it's not something we're required to report, that it can be maintained confidential. Second thing I wanted to say, no pressure, Lorna. And now I'm going to have to go make a pretty website because I don't think that website's that great, but I appreciate your comment. It's like, we made it as a resource so people could find information in one place. So now when everyone sees it, they're going to remember your comments and be like, where is the amazingness? But I appreciate it.
I can tell you I'm a member of the Diversity Leads Committee, which is a committee led by Dr. Janelle Coleman to bring together individuals who lead diversity efforts, especially around various events and activities and training. And we are actually working on launching some type of initiative where everything DEI can be in one place, like a clearinghouse, and we will have links to other pages, other sites on campus. And as soon as you all are approved, and whenever we have this resource ready to launch, definitely I can see your link being included and probably getting a lot of traffic because it's very comprehensive. There's a lot of various types of resources that that you've included on there. So again, I commend you for that work. We have about 8 more minutes in our discussion time. It's going by quickly. What other topics do we want to talk about today?
Do we want to announce the next DEAC meeting during this time?
Yes, please.
Does Robbie want to do it or should I? I mean, I'm already talking. I'll just do it. Okay. On Friday, like in 2 days, February 18th, at 4 p.m. DEAC will be having, I think this is the first big meeting of the semester. It will be hybrid. So there is a Zoom link that is on the any student organization calendar. If anybody wants access to that, they can, I guess, send Dr. Hines an email to get that. And if Dr. Hines, you don't have access to that, then I can send that to you. And then we'll also be in person in ZEC 123. So 4 p.m. Friday.
Yeah, Alyssa, send me an announcement and I can get it posted a few different places and I can send it out to all the faculty, staff, and students.
Wonderful. Other thoughts, comments? I will put in a plug for education and development. There is a variety of various sessions that are available to students, faculty, and staff. This was a foundational approach to excellence and equity and inclusion, but also understanding and interrupting microaggressions, cultural competency, how to assess cultural competency. It was mentioned in my bio, the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is an online assessment of cultural competency. It is about, I don't know, about 50 questions that an individual would respond to, and we just call it the IDI, but IDI will generate a report of individuals' results, and then a qualified administrator such as myself or the other maybe 30 we have on campus will sit down with you and conduct a debrief of the results of your assessment. And again, this is a assessment of cultural competency, not xenophobia, homophobia, bias, and that, but it's just to understand how we normally engage across difference and similarities with others. So definitely we have the IDI. We have a session called Inclusive and bias-free language. We have a session around cultural humility. There is just a variety of various workshop topics. Maybe there's one about appreciative inquiry, which is a strength-based model for growth and development. And it really helps with goal setting around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So just so that you know that there are a variety of other sessions that could be conducted for this department. Again, a student org.
I think she's frozen.
And I just wanted to ask, is there anything that you would like to say, address before we get to the 3 o'clock hour?
I noticed there was another question from Clarice in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if maybe we can spend a couple minutes addressing.
Do you want to grab that, please? I'm not able to see the chat. I kept myself in presentation mode.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Clarice said, traditionally, graduate students are assumed to be of a certain age range. Has your office addressed diversity in terms of age to address students who will be considered non-traditional or older graduate students with established careers and have families?
Wow, that's a tricky one, Clarice, because as I said in the beginning, our office pretty much addresses issues around faculty and staff, but I do see that element where you're talking about age because that is a protected class. And so we would look at that situation on an individual basis, and again, probably work with other partners across campus, just depending if there was an incident or an issue, depending on what that incident or issue was, but age is a protected class. And is there something specific that you had in mind, Clarice?
No, nothing specific. I just was wanting to know. I'm older, and so I may look young. I'll toot my own horn, but I just wanted to know if that was something that was factored into the diversity equation, because at some point we're in the in crowd, and then there's somebody in the out crowd.
Exactly.
And then at some point, we're also in the out crowd while others are in the in crowd. And sometimes that in crowd may be the people who are younger than ourselves. So
exactly.
I just wanted to ask that.
Just so you know, in most instances, age, when we're talking about age, is 40 years and over. And I don't know who determined that number, because I'm in that.
No, right? I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm in that special group too.
I'm in that range.
I'm also a graduate student. I'm a doctorate student, actually, and I am the most seasoned student in my program. So I know exactly from where you are talking, Clarice, because there are very many times that I feel like I'm in the out group. It's almost, sometimes I feel like I'm speaking a different language. And certainly these individuals have had the opportunity to participate in graduate research assistantships and various opportunities that they've been afforded. And there are times when I just feel like I am in a totally different group, and I'm just not like these other folks in this group, right? So I know exactly from where you speak, but age is a protected class. Thank you. Good questions. One more thought. We're at 2:59. If not, I would just like to say thank you again for having me here on today. It definitely is my pleasure. This is what I do, and I'm just going to put my information on the screen if someone would like to have my email address. Let's see if I can get to the right screen. There I am. I am LHOLLO 11 at utk.edu. And again, that's in the Office of Equity and Diversity.
Let's all thank Ms. Hollowell for guiding us through this last hour and a half. And I'm looking forward to calling you Dr. Hollowell sometime in the future. So thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Hines, Deborah, Robbie, to everyone for being here today and providing me this opportunity. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lorna.
All right.